A very good evening and welcome to all the participants in this extremely interesting session. I hope it's going to be an interesting session on the role of hydrogen in carbon neutral Ladakh. Development of Ladakh it's an extremely important region of the country, and it's going to be very, very critical in the future development scenario in India. Uh, and Ladakh is a very special region because not only because it's a state on the border of the country in the northern borders, but also it's a hilly region, which is a cold region, and it has typical uh, geographical peculiarities and regional specificities, more so in the context of climate change, which is affecting the entire globe, entire nation, and those regions which are vulnerable to climate change, they have some particular responses in terms of development, which is unfolding. And to discuss this, we are planning to discuss the role of hydrogen in the future development of Ladakh in order to make it carbon neutral. As you know, carbon neutrality and decarbonization is an emerging, it's a part of emerging global climate change discourse. The several countries have announced net zero goal by 2050. Ladakh is one special region in the country which Prime Minister himself has given special attention, and he has announced that he hopes to see that Ladakh develops as a carbon neutral region in the recent years to come. There's no fixed dateline, but it is the the single important state in the country is the union territory at the moment, but this is the only region in the country where Prime Minister himself has announced that he hopes to make it carbon neutral. So this is a very important policy signal from the government of India. Now, how do we do this? This is a difficult task anywhere, and more so in a hilly region and a region like Ladakh, where the energy requirements are going to grow. The It's entirely dependent on energy, on fossil fuels, on energy that is the fossil fuels that are brought from outside the region. Of course, in the recent past, there have been attempts at enhancing the solar potential of the solar energy in the region, and several initiatives have been taken. There are other stakeholders which have also started to play a role in bringing the issue of hydrogen in the developmental matrix of Ladakh. And that's why we have this session today, and we have an extremely interesting panel of 4 or 5 speakers who are going to present their initiatives, their possible contributions, and the role in the way in which they can help making Ladakh a carbon neutral region. And this is going to be true not only of Ladakh. Hydrogen is an initiative that carries a lot of importance for the rest of the country as well. As you might be knowing, that the government of India has announced a national hydrogen mission, which the Prime Minister himself announced with a lot of emphasis, and slowly it's going to gradually unfold the nuts and bolts of this mission, of how we are going to produce hydrogen. There are various variants of hydrogen. There is brown hydrogen, there is the green hydrogen. So are we going to move straight away into green hydrogen, or we are going to follow a gradual policy of transition at different stages, different technologies we are going to employ? How are we going to bring down the cost of hydrogen? What technologies we'll employ? All this will form part of the discussions, of course, globally, nationally, and more so in the typical context of Ladakh. How are we going to deploy hydrogen for the general purpose of development and for the purpose of green energy transition? I have, as I said, very interesting panel. I have Mr. Rajat Sood from the Energy Efficiency Services Limited, an arm of the Government of India. And then Mr. Rajat Sood brings an extremely rich experience of having worked in the energy sector. He has almost 25 years experience in the energy sector, where he has worked on several energy sector restructuring initiative and the energy efficiency in particular. Before joining the EESL, he was with EVP at Sterlite Power Limited, Siemens, PwC. He is, of course, he is an alumni of the IIM Ahmedabad, and he brings the engineering background, of course. So he has a rich academic experience, a very rich industry experience. And today he's leading a very important initiative with EESL on several the energy transition issues. Energy efficiency, of course, happens to be the core competence of EESL, but there are areas in which they are going to, they have launched several innovative schemes which have made it possible for the country to make to leapfrog into areas of emission reduction. And today we will be hearing from him as to how EESL looks at Ladakh as one of the possible regions where they can do this. The next speaker I have is Mr. Savik Bhattacharya. He's Associate Director at TERI, and he has been, he is currently the focal point in TERI for the energy and policy related issues, where a lot of research is being carried out, and he has been the focal point for evolving a strategy on carbon neutral Ladakh in cooperation with Niti Aayog. He has worked on this, so he has studied in detail as to how the energy scenario, energy consumption, the energy profile of Ladakh is going to grow in the next 30 to 40 years, and what is the kind of energy transition initiatives that we need to take. So with the help of Savik, we will try to understand as to how this might happen. The next, I have Mr. Devashish Manas Ranjan Panda, who is currently the GM in the NTPC. And NTPC, as you know, one of the behemoths, energy behemoths in the country, but increasingly it has started investing in the area of renewables and including hydrogen. So we will be hearing from Mr. Panda the role that NTPC is currently playing in sustaining the energy system in India, how he sees this area evolving into hydrogen, and what kind of initiatives they have in mind for Ladakh region. We will be hearing one of the outstanding representatives from the private sector and the corporate sector, who will be speaking to us as to what kind of investments are possible in this area. Dr. Parag Vyas, he is the managing director of Panitech Power Systems, and he has operations in UK, Switzerland, and elsewhere, and also in India. So Mr. Parag, as you know, he has 25 years of experience in the energy and transport sector, and his former roles include being the head of technology in Agreco Corporation and Advanced Concept Center at Rolls-Royce. He has been associated with several government and non-government bodies. He comes with a background in engineering from Imperial College London, and the doctorate from the University of Oxford. So he brings again a rich combination of academic achievements as well as experience of having worked in the corporate sector. So from him, we will be looking at the corporate and the investment perspective of how hydrogen can play a role in the energy transition in India, and more specifically in the region of Ladakh. With this, let me stop here, and then so that I can invite the panelists and the speakers to address the participants. The rules of the game which we will follow here is that we have about an hour and a half with us. in which I'll request the speakers, I'll invite them to uh, uh, introduce themselves briefly and then cover the issues which they would like to address. And then they will have about 12 to 15 minutes each with them. Of course, they are free to uh, slightly modulate it so that we are within the time budget that is allotted to us. And I'll request them to allow me the freedom to ask them the questions at the end of either their presentation immediately or at the end of the session, depending on the questions which we might receive in the chat box or from the participants. So I'll stop here. Uh,